for this assembly, saying it's actually less than 3.
It is, and people are going to start rioting in the streets.
Was reported to have asked Putin for military support that would help him stay in power.
We will make America safe again, and yes, together we make.
And they ignore him, and 8 more years goes by until himself finally admits to his sons, hey, I've been running a Ponzi scheme.
Does its dominance mean it can use the alliance for its own ends?
Since 1981, bond yields, also known as coupon rates, have just gone down and down and down.
The Federal Reserve note will be your biggest financial liability. RTD Live Talk, Tuesday, 5/29/2018. Looking forward to having a nice, some nice chit chat back and forth tonight on what's happening in your world as well as what's happening around the globe. A lot of developments out east with what's happening in Italy, which seemed like it might be something pretty serious and worth keeping an eye on, especially as the financial markets out in that area continue to drop steadily. So other than that, as always, the clock is ticking. We got 30 minutes to get as much as we can in. And as always, if you're new to RTD Live Talk, I want you to, in the chat, let me know where you're checking in from. I always love to find out if we have any new visitors and viewers. And so we have Slopey Style said, what's up? How you doing, my friend? Scott Robinson, what's up, buddy? How you doing? Stealth Trader from Steam It, brother. How you doing? Got a Steam It viewer, subscriber over here. Appreciate you joining us tonight. And as always, one of the main things of having these live streams is to basically get a chance to see and hear what's happening in your world or in your area, because there's so many things happening in the news. It's impossible to cover it via RTD News updates and videos and whatnot. So if you have anything that's worth mentioning in your neck of the woods, I would love to hear about it, so that the viewers can become more familiar with what's happening around the globe, because there are a lot of things happening. And a couple of the issues I want to touch on tonight: unrest developing, especially in the second, third world countries, primarily, if you guys have not been paying attention, in Nicaragua. There is a lot of upheaval in regards to the Social Security reform, which I think was President Ortega there and his administration basically out of nowhere proposed some Social Security reforms. And whenever you hear the words reform, it typically means cuts. And so as soon as that became public, the people took to the streets, started rioting, tearing up stuff, burning stuff, killing people. And so immediately that reform talk was dismissed, and they went back to, they went back to as if nothing ever happened. But yet the people are still pissed down there because they're in the streets again rioting this past weekend. More people lost their lives and more people taken to the streets. And so also on another reform note, I was reading up on some recent developments in Greece and how there's been reform talk there. And so a lot of people on retirement benefits and whatnot, their payouts were cut in a part of the austerity / reform that the government promised to do in order to receive bailouts from the IMF and all their creditors. And so whenever you hear the word reform, that means something is about to get cut. And then another article was on Rhode Island, how they just basically went before the Supreme Court in Rhode Island, and they had some reforms from a couple of years ago, of which I think 100 people or so began to protest, but yet it held up in the court of law to where they could cut pension payouts in Rhode Island. So there's a lot of things happening, man, that's real worth keeping an eye on. And so I definitely want to make sure I keep you guys up to date and informed of what's happening. They're really important because I believe, we really haven't heard the word reform mentioned here much, other than tax reform, which, basically slash lower class, but yet adds on to our deficit, which means it's going to put us more in a hole. People really don't consider that when you hear the word reform. So other than that, conservative Mexican says Dave Ramsey, what do you think of him? Conservative Mexican, that is a very good question. Over the years, my viewpoints towards the Dave Ramsey program has changed slightly, in that I believe that his baby steps and things of that nature are beneficial to help someone get out of just consumption debt or consumer debt. And so a lot of people start those baby steps with the idea of just basically getting themselves above water, based upon the fact that they've gotten themselves in trouble throughout the years, whether it be with living beyond their means, or having too much, as Dave Ramsey put it, too much debt due, too much debt left after the paycheck runs out, or something like that. So I think it's very good for those to get out of debt initially, but then once you get out of debt and you're above water, then at that point I think the advice kind of runs a little old school / very conservative / dangerous, because those steps he recommended as far as putting it in mutual funds and things of that nature worked 10, 15, 20 years ago, but I really don't think they're going to be working in the days ahead, because we're currently experiencing unprecedented monetary policy, which makes all of that conventional financial advice more so outdated, because as you see from all this pension news and just the financial news in general, everyone knows that the stock market's in a bubble. Everyone knows the housing bubble, student loan debt bubble. We got all these bubbles, but yet they're still telling you to put money into stocks, and of which I don't really think that's going to last after this next recession or / market correction. So a lot of people will stand to lose a lot. So I don't really buy into that narrative anymore myself, but it's good to get out of debt. But once you're out of debt, I think you need to adopt something else philosophy-wise. That's my thoughts. We have Kenneth Gibson from New Mexico. Welcome, Kenneth. Thanks for tuning in, my friend. As far as the Dave Ramsey steps, to touch back on that, yeah, I definitely I did was it Universal course, whatever. I did that initially to get out of debt, which led me into alternative information of figuring out, because once I graduated from Dave Ramsey, it was more so like I like the Robert Kiyosaki method, which is the complete opposite of Dave Ramsey. He mentions about using debt to your advantage. So there's different schools of thoughts out there, but definitely if you are a viewer of Rethinking the Dollar, then you know that conventional ways of investing and things like that may not be as secure in the future as they have been for prior generations. So it's definitely worth thinking outside the box when it comes to those type of things. He says people are totally clueless what's going on around him. Very poor community here. Heavy Democrats depending on social welfare here. 84% kids on free breakfast. Crash the economy has little effect here. Pat, where are you referring to? What area are you referring to? Alaska Prepper, is it the Brazilian truckers on strike due to fuel prices? Supermarkets turning to Brazil. I know there's a lot of stuff going on in Brazil. I haven't really dived into it much, but it's one of many countries experiencing some issues right now. Says, like the idea is it was 50 years ago. My dad actually is a rep for him, but he doesn't believe in crypto, so I don't know. What do you think? A rep for, I'm assuming we're talking about Dave Ramsey still. Yeah, I really, personally, I really don't follow Dave Ramsey anymore. I believe in the getting out of debt, having an emergency fund. Then once I get past that part, I really don't pay attention much, because people more so call in asking for advice, knowing what he's going to say, and common sense would tell you not to take on more than you can afford. But people still have common sense ain't really common no more. So people still have issues with that basic stuff, which means it'll be hard for them to understand an alternative approach towards diversifying outside of fiat currencies. I mean, that'd be a way over a lot of people's head, because they couldn't ever foresee the dollar or Federal Reserve note not being of value still, and it'd be hard to tell them, get out of debt and get rid of dollars at the same time, or diversify out of dollars. All paper money will go to zero, silver all the way. Scott Robertson, I believe 100%. Silver is the people's money. I think the stock market might move to the blockchain. Ooh, sloppy style. That was a good point there. I believe that the stock markets will adopt to blockchain. I don't think it'll be before this coming correction or collapse or whatever some people want to call it. I think it'll be afterwards, and it'll be used to probably offer some security, saying that we're not going to start trading again, but it's going to be done in a completely transparent way. It's going to be done on the blockchain, and they're going to have to use the blockchain method to sell it to the younger generation, especially because senior citizens come this next recession will be wiped out as far as everything that they've invested in those markets. So it's going to be the millennials and younger generations that will need to have some type of reassurance that the same thing won't happen to their parents and grandparents. So that's when most people in the younger category will fall into the blockchain narrative of believing in that. So I think that's how it might play out. It says Digidao is a blockchain gold. Sloppy style, I'm familiar with it, but haven't really looked into it to even really begin to think or speak on that. It says Central Indiana, near Terre Haute, Indiana. Not familiar with that area of Indiana. I know that Pat, am I not mistaken in saying that that was probably once a manufacturing hub for, because I know here in the Motor City we have cars, and so we have buku vacant plants and things like that because of the manufacturing that's gone. And so I've watched some documentaries, I believe, on Indiana and how there's a lot of towns down there with a lot of empty vacant warehouses and whatnot. And so I'm not sure whether it's textile or what it might have been in that particular area, but I imagine you might be suffering the same things we're suffering from up here because of the manufacturing industry not being what it was in the past. Anyone else here of Enigma for private smart contracts? Ooh, not familiar. I've heard of the Enigma, but not familiar with it. But of course, anybody, if you are aware of that, feel free to chime in and answer Sloppy Thow's question. It says, Robert McKinnon, I'm moving to Indiana. Taxes too high here. Parents are still pushing their kids to go to college, even though the debt will hold them back for the coming decades. Yeah, so that plays into my earlier video in regards to Michael Maru, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who has over $1 million worth of student loans to become an orthodontist. And so what, if you haven't had a chance to watch that or check out some of those articles, feel free to do so. But what I found to be very interesting in that whole little summary I did was the fact that his parents paid for him to go to undergrad. And so he graduated debt-free. His parents, I'm not sure what they dropped, but this is all out west, so I imagine it's probably a little bit more expensive than Midwest or out here in my area where cost may not be as high as those over there. But his parents shoved out a lot of money to pay for him to graduate debt-free. He graduated and then chose to go into that field to become an orthodontist, and then took on $600,000, willingly. Like, he knew that was a cost to go to that particular university he went to. And since then, there was additional costs on top of that, which equaled over $1 million. And so he graduated. He's making $200,000 and barely paying the interest. And so there's two ways he's approaching this, and it really got me to thinking, is the fact that he's either going to just pay the bare minimum, expecting in the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5, some type of bailout or relief for all those that are underwater with student loans. Or the second approach would be that to man up and say, hey, man, I took out $1 million worth of loans. Let me go ahead and just Dave Ramsey style, bare bones, rice and beans until I can pay this thing off, which he has the income to do it based upon his lifestyle. But if he makes $13,000 after taxes, and his monthly bill to meet his obligations would be $10,000. So if he wanted to, if his family would be willing to buckle down, they could take care of that debt if he wanted to, and basically live on the bare minimums. But it's good to say that they won't make that sacrifice to pay back that debt, so they will be waiting for some type of bailout. And I imagine that's one person out of countless other millions that probably end up receiving some type of income that could pay back or chip at that debt. But because of this society we're in now, people are expecting some type of help or relief or handout to where they're going to just drag those debts along, pay the bare minimum, and hoping of something type of relief coming soon. So, but we'll see how that plays out. Pat says, I moved out of Chicago last fall to Indiana, much lower cost of living. We live like kings compared to Illinois. Yeah, Illinois, man, a lot of people, I did some reports, a year or so ago, how people are just basically just packing up and dipping out of Illinois because of all those extra taxes that they pose on people, just because of the underfunded pensions. The school system is bad. I heard the what is it called, the trash and all the basic can't think of the whatever they call it, are not being kept up to speed, but yet they still raising taxes. That's just rough, man. Let me see here. It says, I hope that makes sense. We've said, I understand the importance of silver and gold, but how do you create wealth for others when gold and silver is seen as a more of safe than something like investing in the stock market? conservative Mexican, very good question there. Now, for me, I'm not able to give advice, but just to share my thoughts and opinions based upon my research, and my, experiences / understanding of how other economies around us has imploded. At the end of the day, all fiat currencies is what every economy circulates or based upon. So all the stocks, all the bonds, all that's denominated in the local national currency. When governments get in trouble, all they do is begin to take on more debt, i.e. monetize more paper. And so as you continue to do your normal transactions, the paper you're holding on to loses purchasing power. And then you run into situations where the supply and demand, one outdoes the other. There end up being more paper than actual natural goods and services. Therefore, inflation kicks in and the price of goods go up, services go up. And so people run into the pinch of just basically not being able to afford a lifestyle or livelihood. And so a counterbalance to that is the idea of having precious metals in your possession, which are insurance. It's insurance policy against your own national currency. And so as governments and central banks began to go willy-nilly with the monetary supply, with the money supply, gold and silver absorbs all that liquidity to where you can have 1 ounce of gold, but yet all around that, all the paper and digits being created basically just rushes into that nominally, to where the price of that 1 ounce of gold raises astronomically, counteracting what you're losing in paper. And so it's more so an insurance hedge. It's not to actually quote unquote make money. It's more so it acts as a sponge to absorb some of that liquidity that's been flooded into the markets, i.e. what's happening in Venezuela as well as what's happening in Argentina. Your currency can go to shreds, but yet the metal doesn't change, and the exchange ratio and exchange value for it will always go up. So that's a way of just preserving your wealth, not really about profiting, because everything around you is imploding, but yet you're able to maintain some type of value in the form of that metal. So that's kind of the idea of not look at it as making money, but absorbing purchasing power for yourself, as well as all that other purchasing power that's absorbed into that as well, if that kind of makes sense. Roads are trash too. John Miller says, can you buy a house in Detroit for $10,000? John Miller, you can buy a house in Detroit for $10,000. Only problem is the house you may purchase will probably be in an area where you may not really want to be a landlord or a homeowner in that area, because the surrounding neighborhood will be very dangerous and not ideal for A, raising a family, and B, any type of investment property, just because the people that might end up being your tenants may not be people you can rely upon. But you can get a house for $10,000 or cheaper. I'm pretty confident of that, because there's more than enough vacant houses and empty lots and all that scattered throughout the city of Detroit. It says, paid $28,000 for my wife to go to school. Now makes $10 an hour. Said not worth it. Scott, wow, $28,000 for your wife to go to school makes $10 an hour. So yeah, that's that scenario, my friend, even though it sounds like it wasn't part of the plan initially, but yet a lot of people, I'm sure, fall into that same category as far as not having received the promised benefits in higher learning. And so that plays into a lot of what I said earlier about the idea of higher learning. I believe there's going to be a paradigm shift, and if you are able to just think outside the mainstream narrative and realize that going into debt may not really be worth it in the long run, especially if it's going to be a service sector job where only thing you're going to do is earn a certificate to then go sit in an office and do something, whether it be paper pushing or unless it's something computer based or something that is needed and in high demand, you might want to hold off. And I still believe, as a lot of people mention, also the importance of having a trade. It'd be good to go do something, get a skill set where you can use your hands to fix or build something. Because regardless of everything that's happening around us, there's going to be people, there's going to be hands needed to lay cement, to lay bricks and wiring, plumbing, all those things there, which aren't, they are not your glamorous jobs, but they'll be in demand no matter what. So, and then I don't know of anybody personally, but I believe that it's probably a good way from an entrepreneurial standpoint to start a business, hiring and training people to use their hands, because it will be in demand. And it's good to say that you'll always have some business, as opposed to hiring and getting involved in paper pushing, getting a certificate to push papers, unless you're doing something that's, also with your hands is high tech. So anything in the tech industry or anything using your hands, you know, I can see being of use forever. It says gold and silver will suck up all those dollars heading back to the USA. Yes, they will, Tom. I believe that is the case, but along the way, there's so many Federal Reserve notes in digital forms or in paper form that ain't no telling how they will be received initially, because not many people, other than probably the viewers here and a very small, you know, very small amount of people in this alternative media community actually understand what gold and silver are. So it's good to say all those digits and dollars are going to flood into the economy directly, driving up the prices of everything, hence the idea of high inflation. And so not only will the financial assets be inflated, but then also consumer goods and, you know, services will be inflated as well, along with metals and whatnot. So yeah, we'll see, man. I've never experienced or witnessed anything directly other than what I've read and the scenarios of people who come out on the other side better off than they went in are the people that held precious metals and had alternative ways of survival, water, food, storage, security, things of that nature. So we'll see. Since those jobs make great money if you have the skills, 6 figures. Yeah, I do believe that is possible. It says we need politicians like Duterte. If we no longer will follow the Constitution, enough of all these sleazy rats passing leftist policies for. I'm not familiar with that particular politician. Let me look him up. T. Hamilton. Let me see who we're talking about here. Rodrigo Duterte. Okay, the Philippine. Okay, the Filipino president. Yeah, he's the one that said, made some comments about the U.S. I think it was about a year ago. Then all of a sudden there was, Rodrigo Duterte. Let me pull it up just for those that may not be familiar with it. Here we go. Rodrigo Duterte. I remember, I think it was a year and a half ago, he made some comments about the U.S. intervention and how he didn't want the U.S. influence in his country or something like that. It just came out of nowhere through the mainstream media. And then sure enough, it was about a month later, he had some, he had some, I forgot the name. They gave so many names nowadays. Not Al-Qaeda, but it was another terrorist group that was all of a sudden in the Philippines. And so I'm like, what in the world would there be Islamic terrorists in the Philippines for? Like, that just had bad PR, bad everything on it. It was just so obvious that the USA sent some dogs over there to get in his business. And so, of course, they got terrorism in the Philippines. Like, what the hell? Who the hell gonna go over there and bomb the Philippines? Like, they got anything anybody wants. So that was just bad when I saw that. But goes to show how much, if you don't play along with the mainstream narrative, how you could be bombed at any minute, any point. Yeah. It says, come on to Texas, AC2 weather. It said, big banks hate the trade schools. It's hard to teach Marxism when you are learning about electrical work. Yeah, very true. Good HVAC commercial techs do make $45 an hour. Yeah, people, we gonna always need some AC. That's for sure. Heating and cooling, we gonna always need that. So that'll be something to be worthwhile. Says Scott Robinson, I got my GED. Excuse me, at the age of 40, I made $100 grand before I turned 42, but the world changed. It's changing again. Yeah, I think, yeah, like I actually, just for the sake of it, just to get an idea and get a feel for it, I actually started doing some coding a year ago. And I did some free, and that's another thing here. With the internet being the way that it is, you can YouTube how to do whatever and learn a skill. Then you just got to go out and actually apply it and learn through trial and error. But you can get certified if you watch enough YouTube videos, in my opinion. And so back to what I was talking about coding. I have an interest to learn how to code just because I'm such a techie at heart. But it takes time and everything else to learn how to code. But yet, me knowing how much computers have will be a part of our future, I think coding will be something that will be very valuable, just because it's the equivalent of speaking a foreign language. And if you can speak to machines or help machines speak to each other, you might be useful in the AI world. It says learn Python code. I think it might have been Python for a second, but it was one of the things where it takes time and straight concentration, because I was trying to mix coding amongst all other types of other things, editing and learning, trying to sharpen up my Spanish skills. So it was hard, but it just takes time. But I'm willing to do it because I'm always looking to learn new things. Meredith says, I do welding, sewing, and woodwork. There you go, my friend. True that. I have learned a lot from watching YouTube videos. Me too. Yeah, that's the thing. If you want to learn anything, man, YouTube it or Google how to. And here's another thing. Okay, so if you really can, which I believe you can, pretty much learn you can get the basics of anything it is you want to do outside of becoming a brain surgeon or something like that. But anything else that will allow you to add value into other people's lives, you can learn online. So why hasn't our school curriculum changed at all? How come, we're not being told? Why is there not, like, kids are able and encouraged to have computers in school, but then they're still using teachers directly in the front of a classroom, giving them a lecture, allowing them to open up their laptop. That right there is outdated. I think, kids don't really need to go to school all day long to learn the basics of, just general knowledge, math, English, science. You can do all that at home, man. I think school, this is off subject, but I really believe the school should be maybe 4 or 5 hours a day, and the other 3 or 4 actually applying some things that kids can use. I believe that if they really wanted to, if our school system was really about helping our youth, that they wouldn't make them have to go to college. By the time you graduate from high school, you should have a skill set. You should have, basically from the time you become a freshman to your senior year, you should be able to get a college education in high school so that you don't have to go to college. But we all know that the whole goal is to keep the same narrative, keep the same system going. But the higher education stuff is coming to an end soon. Since we are in a anthropogenic climate, our whole economy is dependent on using oil. All of this is over. Yeah, the whole oil subject is really interesting because I think as SRS Rocco mentioned that oil is, we're peak oil, and then we have another gentleman talking about oil is, becoming harder to, good quality oil is hard to find, and there's different grades of oil. That's a science within of itself. But knowing that we need energy, and oil happens to be the primary source for now, so that's why I believe that whole solar is becoming popular. So hopefully there's some alternative green energy will be good, I assume. Since property taxes and these corrupt school system unions would kick and scream so hard if you tried to take their golden goose away. yeah, that would be true. It's all about profit, man. The fact that not only is the school pensions system crumbling, they shifted the burden from the schools to the actual contributors or employees themselves with this new 401k model of a retirement system for teachers. But then they have people who actually are becoming teachers just for the financial security in your retirement. And so basically you're giving the kids half of their best effort in the first place. And so you have people that just teaching that shouldn't be teachers, and they can do away with all that by coming up with something to where kids can learn at a shorter period of the time of the day, 4 hours max of actual in-class work, and then 4 hours hands-on learning something that can be used in the future. So I believe that, all this needs to be redone, but, who is going to be the one to initiate change? Not sure. It starts with each and every one of us individually, parent-wise. It says the best private schools don't have computers. Old school chalk and blackboard. Silicon Valley CEOs know this. Yeah, like the only schools I'm aware of, especially in my area, that make it's mandatory to have laptops at the school that my boys go to, and of course that it comes at a cost, unfortunately. So it's not cheap. But then that's what got me thinking about the fact that if they need laptops, everything they go hear from the teacher, they can get on the internet. What's the point in that? But that's just how it goes. Says all that needs to happen is for the reactors to be fueled. Nevada and Colorado have massive thorium reserves. John Mitchell, at this day and age, kids should be taught prepper classes with survival skills. Yeah, but see, John, the only problem with that is you're teaching kids about prepper. That's basically giving them a warning that something's happening or going to happen, and they don't want people to know that things are possibly about to implode or unfold or whatnot. So, but speaking of which, as we draw towards the end of tonight's chit chat, we got about 2 minutes left. I got the phone lines open. Anybody want to chime in, call in, and share whatever's on their mind via voice, feel free to do so. I want to make sure I try to at least get a call in if I can. Love to hear people's voice directly. It says inflation is more than 10%. No matter how much money these retired teachers get, it will not be enough. Inflation is theft. Very good point there. So speaking of inflation, let me come up with a website that from a gentleman I interviewed let me see, what is the website where he actually put together, according to each metropolitan area, the actual cost for the actual necessities that people utilize for their living, and all the figures were damn near 10%, if not higher. And so, of course, the bigger the city, the higher the inflation was. But damn, I can't think of, shoot, I can't think of the guy offhand. It'll come to me once I end the stream. So that this implosion is all by design. I don't doubt it, Pad. College isn't a good thing when it becomes a 13th, 16th grade, $250,000 in debt, and the only job you are qualified for is to wait tables. College sucks unless you are learning an actual skill. Very true. And that's another thing. I've actually noticed that when it comes to college, they've created so many, like, I not to talk bad about somebody, I hope they're not watching, but somebody actually went to school for museum art studies or something like that. I couldn't believe when I heard he went to school to study museum displays. Caller. Not to talk bad about somebody, I hope they're not watching, but somebody actually went to school for museum art.
Hello?
Hello, caller. How you doing? Can you mute your computer for me?
You say use my mute?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I can hear my voice on your computer, but I'm good now. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Okay. My name is Merritt Holloway.
Merritt Holloway.
And I'm calling from Merritt Holloway, and I'm calling from Bakersfield, California.
Bakersfield, California. How you doing, my friend? Thanks for calling in.
Brother, really good. I just want to say, I didn't really want anything. I just kind of turned you on a few minutes ago. But what I do want to say is, I've been catching some of your interviews lately. I think you're doing a really outstanding job, man. Seriously, I like your content about China and all of this stuff. Plus, especially, man, the Jim Willie interviews.
Yeah.
And also the one with Elijah Johnson. So I just wanted to say, brother, if I could. I like what you're doing, man, and I just wanted to just, man, give you a shout out, man, send you some,
thank you.
some love, man. Keep it going, man.
I
I'm
appreciate
gonna try to support you, man, but I'm poor, but I'm sharing your stuff, man. I'm following you, and like that. So.
Well, thank you. All I ask is if you enjoy the content, just share so that other people can become aware. All I want to do is just promote awareness, and if people can become aware and start making decisions for themselves, that'd be great. That'd do me all the justice I need, my friend.
Right on.
But thank you.
Man, keep it up, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the call, buddy.
Right on. Later.
Yeah, man, that's real talk right there. I appreciate the love right there, buddy. Appreciate it. And as always, I mean, I do this because I love it, because I want to wake people up. So all I ask is if you enjoy the content as it gets better, as I learn more, feel free to share it with others. And the biggest thing, just get them to ask questions. Like, I want somebody to prove me wrong. Call in and say, you wrong. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it then. That's right up my alley. Because I don't have to be right. Because everything around me reveals that something's wrong. You can tell something's wrong. People are tapped out of debt and low income and you name it. Yeah, so something's wrong. Now, how, what, where, how, all that stuff, we can get debate back and forth on that. But we all know something's going on. It says here, little how school shootings are the result of prescription drugs and fatherless homes. Yeah, the school shootings, man, those are tragedies, man, because there's so many other school shootings that if you look at certain angles, depending on how you look at it, a lot of them are labeled false flags, but yet there are people who lose their life. And so, unless you're there, I don't really want to speak on that directly, but I do know that in majority of those cases, I think they're called those psychotropic drugs, if I'm not mistaken, are involved with those individuals that decide to go off the cuff and begin shooting or taking lives or whatever it is. So definitely the pharmaceutical industry should be reevaluated, because those drugs are not ideal. They're not designed to help other than just to cover up and to alter people's mind state. And if you want to know how dangerous those psychotropic / pharmaceutical drugs are, just stick around and to the end of one of those commercials when they say, they give you these 30 seconds of pumping it up, show all these people smiling, and then at the very end it says may cause diarrhea, heart attack, death, lung, kidney, lung failure. This, I'm like, damn. I'm like, that little 5-second clip of what could be lets me know that I don't want that in my damn body. I don't want to find out, what the side effects will be with this drug, but that's just something. Then they say, call this number and get a free trial. Free my butt, boy. You keep that. Just it says, when do you do these live streams? Please clarify the scheduling. Jovan, that is a very good question, man. So the live streams typically It's usually hit or miss based upon my schedule. I try to do at least 1 to 2 a week. But because I really enjoy having a chance to connect with people directly, I'm going to, starting this week, commit to doing a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday live stream at around 9:30, give or take, hit or miss. I know there's a lot of sports activities, and so, of course, I'm a sports guy, so I like to make sure I check in with some basketball every now and then. But this, of course, is more important. So I'm going to try to do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. So I'm going to build some promotion around that, put out some videos and whatnot to kind of give a time frame so that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, for at least 30 minutes max, we can check in and people can call in and share their thoughts, and we can just basically just from as a community, just chime and talk and see what's going on out here. And I love people to call in and share their thoughts on what's happening. So let's plan on connecting again tomorrow night around the same time. I'll be here. It says school shootings were a priority, written about at least going back to the 1950s by the deep state. I think we had at least 23 so far this year alone. Damn, 23 for real. I wasn't aware of 23. And I'd imagine that, now I wonder that 23 actually hit the mainstream media, because beyond the big ones, like the major ones where like the Florida, the Texas, I mean, those ones I'm familiar with because they're mainstream. But yet with these school shootings and just shootings in general, isn't it ironic that they happen to be school shootings? Whereas in like, hell, in Detroit, we got people getting killed all the time. In Chicago, same way. Like people dying all the time. 3, 4, 5 people getting, so it's just amazing how they like to highlight the school stories, all with the idea of removing guns from people, as if the guns themselves are the reason that people are acting fools out here. Question says, you uploaded a video with a man with $1 million in student loans. You think he was an idol? Was an idiot? I think that was an idiot. Do I think he was an idiot? I would say he's an idiot because he, I believe, probably did what was best in his pursuit of becoming an orthodontist. And so I would imagine that if he could probably go back and probably change universities and whatnot, then he probably would go to some school that was cheaper and probably cut that bill in half. And if it was, say, a $500,000 student loan, he wouldn't have been a primary story. But if you look in that one of those same articles, it mentioned how there's 101 people at this current time frame with over $1 million. So it's good to say those other 100 people probably are either in med school or some type of medicine-based schooling that led to several years of school, which led to astronomical debts. Now, if you ask those people in total, would they do it again, knowing that the debt that they would incur? I'd imagine they probably would say yes, just because they are probably making good 6 figures, with the idea that they probably won't be repaying those debts back, or they can just string it out for 20, 30 years and pay the bare minimum, and it still won't affect their lifestyle because they can kind of defer the bulk of those payments to the future. So I don't think he was an idiot. I think he probably did that as a strategy, knowing that at the end he'll still be living good. His services and what knowledge he does have based upon being an orthodontist or an orthodontist will be valuable anywhere around the world. So even if he does decide to just not pay or whatever, he can get his checks, confiscated, but then probably go to another country and be okay. So I don't think he's an idiot. No, I think he's just basically taking advantage of a system that unfortunately hurts a lot of people, but yet he's going to benefit from it because he's making $200,000 right now. It says, Murky's Den, do you have an idea as to what you are talking about? More people die of drunk driving than murders by firearms. Yeah, more people die just from I heard. I'm not sure where I read this from, but more people die of natural cause just waking up Monday morning, the stress of going into work. And so I'm not sure if that's true, but I read it from a source. I think it was correct, but just off stress alone from going to work, it kills people. Just the idea of getting up and going where they want to be is enough to cause a heart attack and stuff like that. So yeah, death is natural. It's unfortunate it happens and is highlighted with all these events here, but it's all a part of an overall agenda. Keep that in mind. Ban Harris, you can kill 30 people in 5 seconds with a knife. It's not the same. All right, so watch this. Let's not get carried away on the whole shooting aspect and all that. We all can agree that there's an agenda to remove weapons, regardless whether they're automatic weapons, handguns, whatever. There's a big push to remove weapons from the Americans' hands because as a population of 300 million, there's more guns in the streets amongst the citizens than there are with law enforcement, and that's a problem. especially given the fact that we know that there's things brewing that will bring about change, that will make it very difficult to reinforce martial law or any type of other law when your population has more guns and ammunition than your law enforcement. So we know the push is against guns, to remove guns, so that there'll be less of a resistance towards this change that might be in the making. Yeah, so that's what it is, man. But no, I appreciate everybody chiming in. If we don't have anyone else who's going to call in, that's going to be tonight's segment of RTD Live Talk. Definitely was good to go back and forth. Appreciate the one caller that did call in. Other than that, let's try this again tomorrow night. And as always, since we're going to be here tomorrow night about 9:30, feel free to tell some family and friends or whoever that might be interested in hearing something different outside of the typical CNN and Fox News. Tell them to come join us, and we can have another talk about tomorrow's when the Italian when the Italian markets open up. We'll see if the situation in Italy continues to get worse to the point where it trickles into other countries as the euro, if you guys haven't been watching, as the euro begins to lose purchasing power in comparison to the dollar. So I can see if this contagion continues to grow, we can probably be looking at a 1-to-1 euro to dollar ratio, which of course would be good for us going there, but not good for them coming here, and as well as not good for those that are saving in euros directly. So other than that, anything else that we didn't cover, want to make sure before we tune out, want to inform you guys on some of the things where we got over here. Some of the things here that's happening. If you have not, make sure you visit RTD University page where I put together all my prior interviews. It's a wealth of resources right there in of itself. I consider it a free schooling. I think if you watch 2 or 3 of those videos, if you're new to RTD, you'll walk away knowing more than you might learn in college for sure. If they're here at RTD on Twitter, make sure you follow me there. I share posts throughout the day. The silver giveaway ends in 2 weeks. Somebody's going to take home a 10-ounce silver bar. So the links is below this video here. And then I got the free ebook here, 5 Reasons to Hold Precious Metals Before the Next Recession. And I talk about how this could be our last recession. Then I have a webinar coming up that I'm going to unleash once I finish making some tweets any way you can to draw them in so they can understand what's going on. Other than that, it was a great night. I enjoyed kicking it with everybody. And I will see you tomorrow night, same time, same place. Enjoy your evening.